We'll go ahead and begin. I'd like to welcome each and every one of you to this afternoon's agenda meeting. Today we'll review those action items that will be formally addressed next Tuesday, December 17th at 6 p.m. Last meeting of the year?
Yes, sir.
All right.
I scheduled one there.
Last scheduled meeting of the last regularly scheduled meeting of the year. So, City Manager Mr. Bill Burrow is on a much-needed vacation. We hope he's enjoying himself, and Deputy City Manager Denny McFate will lead us through those action items. Denny?
Thank you, Mayor. Starting off with the consent agenda, consider resolution R24-226, a resolution acknowledging receipt of the City of Hot Springs financial statements for October 2024. Karen Scott, our Finance Director, will present.
Thank you. Good afternoon. As you all know, the monthly financial statements are issued to keep city management and constituents apprised of the financial condition of the City of Hot Springs. The October 2024 financial statements will be linked to your board action request form, and staff recommends acknowledging receipt of the October 2024 financial statements.
Any questions of Karen? Hearing none. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next up is consider resolution R24-227, a resolution approving the reclassification of certain ARPA expenditures and decommitting certain ARPA funds. Again, Karen Scott, our Finance Director.
Yes, so city staff is requesting certain technical corrections to SLFRF, that stands for State and Local Fiscal Recovery Funds, what we know as ARPA, expenditures in order to comply with an upcoming deadline. We were under an old assumption that funds had to be obligated by December 31st, 2024 and expended by December 31st, 2026. However, we received new guidance in October of 2024 that says eligible costs that your organization incurred during the period March 3rd, 2021 through December 31st, 2024 are now eligible. Therefore, we are requesting that we manage these funds now prior to December 31st so that we do not have to send any funds back. So we had some funds that were previously reported to the Treasury as expenditures categorized as revenue replacement. We have consulted with the Arkansas Municipal League, and they are advising us to change those reporting categories to public health. And the two items are $113,268.78 that was for COVID vaccine bonuses, and $6,793.99 that was for temporary housing. Also, the board has previously committed $42,373.03 for household assistant, which is rent, mortgage, and utility aid. The city has been unable to contract with any agencies to assist in the distribution of these funds. AML also further recommends that the board formally decommit these funds for this purpose. There will be spreadsheets in your packet identifying all of these amounts, because I know it's hard to keep up with me just rattling them off. But
Any questions of Karen? Recognizing we'll get the detail in our packet. Director Webb?
Thank you, Mayor. Ms. Karen, is the next item where we plan to
correct.
Appropriate those funds?
Yes, I felt like it was best to separate them into two
Okay.
resolutions, but
Thank you.
absolutely.
Any further questions on this resolution, R24-227? Hearing none. Continue.
So therefore, after the board approves the reclassification of those expenditures and then the decommitting of that $42,000, that leaves $141,467 in ARPA funds that need to technically be expended by December 31st, 2024, again, in order to meet that deadline so we don't have to send any funds back to the Treasury. And we are recommending that of that $141,000, $120,063 be transferred to the general fund for reimbursement of salary and benefit expenditures, and $21,404 transferred to the water fund for reimbursement of water infrastructure expenditures. The funds in the general fund would be restricted and would only be used after specific city board approval and budget amendment. and the transfer to the water fund would then be considered revenue of the water fund.
Okay, any questions?
And again, the spreadsheets will be in your packet.
Any questions on this item? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, consider resolution R 24-229, a resolution authorizing a certain change to the signatures on the Garland County District Court bank account with Bank OZK. And City Attorney Brian Albright.
Thank you, Danny. Mayor, members of the board. Arkansas accounting laws for district court require that the two, well, in our case, two presiding judges be the signatories on the bank accounts that they are in charge of. And so with the election of Judge Schweitzer going to circuit court, Judge Petro going to district court, we need to switch that out so that Petro is replaced for Schweitzer. It's just really a housekeeping matter and to comply with the Arkansas State District Court accounting laws.
Any questions of Brian? Thank you.
Next item up is consider resolution R 24-230, a resolution amending resolution number 10546 by approving an amendment to the Delta Dental Plan of Arkansas, Inc. group contract for 2025, and Brooke Gilbert, our Human Resource Director, will present.
The city has an opportunity to offer added coverage to the dental benefits plan utilizing the Right Start for Kids program. The Right Start for Kids program promotes dental hygiene and is a benefit feature program that removes most cost barriers of dental care by providing covered services for children to age 13 at 100% with no deductible. The Right Start for Kids benefit will pay covered services at 100% coverage for diagnostic and preventative basic and major services not including orthodontics when an in-network provider is seen. This added benefit would cover cleanings, exams, x-rays, fluoride treatments, sealants, fillings, crowns, and tooth removal. Also, there are no deductibles or waiting periods for any covered services. Currently, we have 43 children under the age of 13 that would benefit for this program. The projected cost of adding this additional benefit based on claims in the previous year is $2,716, which is only a 1.1% increase. Staff recommends approving this amendment to allow for this added benefit.
Okay, any questions of Brooke? The effective date, once approved, or if approved, would be what, January 1?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's the beginning of your plan year.
Yes, sir.
Any questions? Hearing none? Thank you.
Next item, consider resolution R 24-231, a resolution extending an agreement with the High Impact Movement, Inc. pursuant to ACA 1458-104-18 for a life skills and educational youth program. And again, City Attorney Brian Albright.
Mayor, members of the board, filling in for Lance on this, but this is a continuation of annual contract with High Impact Movement. We began doing that September of 2021. You heard from Mr. Gray at your last meeting, in which he gave you a report. Your packet will also include the year-end report and the financials, along with the proposed contracts that's being set at the same terms and conditions as we previously had.
Any questions of Brian? Hearing none? Thank you.
Okay, next item is consider resolution R 24-232, is a resolution approving an agreement between the City of Hot Springs and its public transit operator, Hot Springs Intercity Transit Department, and the West Central Arkansas Planning and Development District, and its Tri-Lakes Metropolitan Planning Organization, MPO, and the Arkansas Department of Transportation and Planning. And Harmony Morrissey, our City Clerk.
Thank you. That is a mouthful. Recently, the Federal Transit Administration completed its fiscal year 2024 triennial review of the Hot Springs Intercity Transit Department. An issue highlighted in this review is the city's existing cooperative planning agreement, which was approved by resolution number 9839. This existing agreement does not include RDOT as a signatory. So the recommendation from the FTA is to execute an updated agreement by January 8th of 2025 to be in better compliance with that. Adding the state to the agreement better outlines the sharing of the system performance data and transportation plan with the Tri-Lakes MPO and RDOT. So this proposed agreement has been approved by Tri-Lakes MPO Policy Board and is now being presented to you for approval. Upon your approval, it would then be forwarded to the state for RDOT's signature. The Intercity Transit Resident Advisor Keith Jones is here, and together we're happy to answer any questions you might have about this.
No financial impact in connection with this matter, just a administrative move.
Any questions? Hearing none? Thank you.
Next item is consider Resolution R-24-233, a resolution authorizing the filing and acceptance of a grant with the Federal Aviation Administration under the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law Airport Terminal Program for terminal building improvements at the Hot Springs Memorial Airport. And Airport Director Don Rowlett will present.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This resolution is requesting approval for the filing and acceptance of a pre-selected FAA grant in the amount of $1.4 million for the airport terminal. It was announced in October that the airport had been selected for that. This grant is a result of a nationwide project evaluation in which Hot Springs is one of 2 Arkansas airports that received monies in this category. The grant is part of the airport terminal program within the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law and is fully funded by the federal government. The grant will be used to address 3 areas at the terminal. Renovate the appearance of the terminal exterior, improve the efficiency of the building by looking at the windows and door improvements or replacement, and addressing minor ADA access issues.
Very good. Any questions? Director Webb?
Thank you, Mayor. This might be a question more for Brian, for UB, but on our major capital unfunded project list, there was one line item that did refer to external renovations at the airport. Would this cover a majority, if not all, of those renovation items?
It will certainly touch on a lot of it. And as you probably know, we have a master agreement with Garver Engineering, and so they'll do the bidding on the various elements of these projects. And ultimately, they'll come to you for approval for the expenditure of the funds. But yes, this should cover almost all of the improvements that we were looking at in your capital improvement goals.
Well, sounds good, and I appreciate city staff taking the time and effort to obtain this grant.
Any further questions? Thank you.
Next item is consider Resolution R-24-234, a resolution awarding a bid to Comfort Systems USA, Inc. for a new HVAC unit at the Ouachita Water Treatment Plant, and Water Facilities Operation Manager Cody Howell will present.
Thank you, Board and Mayor, for everything you do, not only for the Water Production Department, but for each and every city department. The Ouachita Water Plant is currently using 6 mini split-face units that were installed in 2013. So over time, those units have declined in not only efficiency, but they've become more of a maintenance issue for us. The new HVAC unit will be a 7.5-ton unit that is mounted on top of the roof, and this will service the whole operations building more efficiently and more effectively, and will also help with the excess of moisture that we have inside the water plant. All invitations to submit bids for the HVAC unit to be installed at the Ouachita Water Plant as set out as HS 24-076 were duly advertised and sent to the vendors. Comfort Systems USA submitted the sole responsive bid. City staff evaluated their response in accordance with the Hot Springs Code and recommends awarding the bid to Comfort Systems USA. A notice of intent to award this bid has been published and no protests have been filed. And the total cost to provide and install the HVAC unit is $159,403. The funds are budgeted in the 2024 CIP plan.
Denny, you've had some dealings with Comfort Systems. They've been reliable.
Yes,
vendor.
we've done work with them for at least 20 years.
What's the size of the building that's going to be cooled?
As far as square footage, I don't have that in front of me, but it's the whole operations where the operators sit for the console, the offices, as well as where each filter room is.
Yeah. So it's heating and air conditioning?
Yes, sir, heating and air.
Okay. Director Webb?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. You were mentioning there were 6 units, and this is a 7.5 ton unit, so it's 1 unit replacing 6, is that correct?
So currently we have the mini splits that hang on the wall,
Okay.
and so they're basically there's one in each room, more or less, and they currently run on 2 condensers at the moment. And so with that many split face units running on 2 condensers, they're always fighting against each other, which is one reason why we have so many maintenance issues out of them.
That makes sense.
Are the split face, the ductless type units, is that what you're talking about?
Ductless, yes, yeah, yes, sir.
So we're putting, a lot of this cost is for duct work itself, right?
Yes,
'Cause
yes,
you
Mayor.
don't have duct work. You're
There's
tying
no
it.
duct work, so they're going to have to go through some of the walls and add the duct work and basically just run the duct work and vents to each room.
Yeah. All right. Any additional questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cody. The next item will be a public hearing. We'll hold a public hearing on a proposed ordinance fixing rates for services rendered by the wastewater system of the city of Hot Springs.
Mayor, as we discussed at your last meeting, Arkansas law requires on wastewater rates, not water rates, but wastewater rates, that there be a public hearing after the first introduction of the rates ordinance. And so you had a first reading by title only last week on your rates, and at your last meeting, you set next week as the date for the public hearing. So this is acknowledging that public hearing that will be held prior to consideration of the ordinance for its second and third final reading.
Very good. Any questions of Brian on the public hearing? Thank you.
Okay, next would be, item would be old business. Consider ordinance 02438, an ordinance fixing rates for services rendered by the wastewater system of the city of Hot Springs, repealing ordinance numbers 5978, 6354, and 6428, and prescribing other matters related thereto. And Karen Scott, our finance director, will present.
Yes, the wastewater system of the city of Hot Springs is in need of capital improvements and betterments to comply with outstanding consent administrative orders, as well as providing for the capacity needing for future growth of the system. The estimated cost of the needed capital improvements and betterments is stated at approximately $68 million. Revenue bonds will be required to fund those improvements. See the November 5th, 2024 presentations to the board made by Wildan Financial Services and Cruz and Associates will be attached to this board action request. ACA 14-235-223 provides that the rates or charges shall be sufficient in each year for the payment of the proper and reasonable expense of operation, repair, replacements, and maintenance of the system, and for the payment of the sums required to be paid into the sinking fund for the payment of bonds and interest thereon. As you know, a 2024 wastewater rate analysis and long-term financial plan has been conducted on behalf of the system by Wildan Financial Services, which indicates the need for an increase in rates sufficient to fund the necessary revenue bonds for the capital improvements and betterments of the system. The proposed ordinance includes rate schedules that would become effective February 1st, 2025. The proposed rate increase will generate the revenue necessary to fund debt service for this bond issue in the principal amount of $69.8 million. At the board meeting, Dan Jackson with Wildan Financial Services and Bob Wright with Cruz and Associates will be here to also answer any questions you may have.
Very nice. Any questions of Karen? Director Webb?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. This is kind of hopping back to the public hearing, but it's in regards to this same ordinance. To sign up for a public hearing, what do residents need to do? Is it the same process as signing up for any agenda item?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And are they allowed 3 minutes to speak? And then if any questions are asked, they can be extended to respond to the question and so forth?
Yeah, which are typically not handled during the public hearing. They're handled at the business item itself because, again, you could sign up and have discussion that's when the board's going to have its discussion about the matter. The public hearing is to literally hear from the public.
So they would just share with us what they want to say for the public hearing at the public hearing, and then if any questions were to arise from directors as a result of the hearing, then we would bring those up at the time that the ordinance item is before us?
Precisely. Yes,
Okay,
sir. Yes, sir.
thank you.
And that will be presented to you with a request for a motion second to suspend the rules, read by title only, so that you're prepared to vote that night. Doesn't mean that you have to, but you're prepared to vote.
Okay, thank you.
Any additional questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, new business, consider resolution 24-235, a resolution declaring a certain structure located at 234 Garden Street a nuisance and condemning same pursuant to Title 17 of the Hot Springs Code. Chief Building Official Mike Scott will present.
Thank you. The City of Hot Springs proposes condemnation for the purpose of repairing a vacant single-family residential structure at 234 Garden Street. This property is owned by Robert and Willie Ruth Perkins. Both Mr. and Ms. Perkins are deceased, and we have been unable to make contact with any family members. Therefore, all notices of these proceedings were handled by an attorney ad litem. That paperwork is provided in your packet. The structure is located in the Pleasant Street Historic District and is currently a contributing member of the district. However, in its current condition, the structure poses a public health and safety risk. Chapter 1 of the Hot Springs Property Maintenance Code 17-1-8, abatement by city states. If the owner of the house, building, or structure constitutes a nuisance, have not obtained the required permits and commenced work to repair, rehabilitate, secure, raise, and remove, or otherwise abate said nuisance within 30 days after the posting of the true copy of the resolution at the conspicuous place on the house, building, and/or structure, said house, building, and/or structure constitutes the nuisance, will be repaired, boarded, and secured, or raised and removed, as may be necessary to abate the nuisance by the city manager or his designee. This allows the city not only to raise and remove unsafe structures that have been condemned by the board of directors, but also allows the city to make the necessary repairs to prevent further damage to the structure. In this case, this structure should the board decide to proceed with condemnation, the city would request bids from contractors to remove the damaged roof, including the damaged rafters, and replace all damaged decking, roofing, soffit, and fascia, including the ceiling above the porch. This work would also include replacing any and other all roof components such as flashing and other trim. Additionally, the windows and doors would be secured in a manner that complies with the property maintenance code. All exterior work would comply with the Secretary of Interior standards and the Pleasant Street Historic District design guidelines. In addition, the contractor would be required to apply for the certificate of appropriateness from the City of Hot Springs Historic District Commission prior to commencing work. All repairs and cost administrative fees would then result in a lien placed on the property at the Garland County Clerk's office. Having inspected the structure and based on the requirements set forth by the Arkansas Fire Prevention Code and the Hot Springs Maintenance Code, the structure has been deemed unsafe for habitation, and due to the extent of the deterioration, inability, or unwillingness of the property owners to make the repairs to stabilize, or based on its location and its status in the contributing member of the Pleasant Street Historic District, we are requesting that the structure be condemned for the purpose of repairing the structure.
Any questions of Mike? Director Garcia.
Can someone include in our packet what the process would be to transfer title of this property if someone was interested in obtaining it, since there was no family able to be? How would this property ever, how would the lien ever be satisfied? The owners are deceased, no family members. Is
Yeah.
there a process of what happens to the property?
You broach a good topic. There is not a way to just transfer ownership because the property was never a subject of probate or a trust or any kind of beneficiary deed, so it literally is hanging there in limbo. And because it is a contributing structure in the district, infiltration of rainwater is the biggest enemy of any structure. So the idea that Mike has come forward with is to stop that. Abate the infiltration of water by repairing the roof, replacing it, securing the windows, maybe even using some window coverings like you did. with the
Polycarbonate.
Okay, if you're familiar with those, there's some of those on the Webb House, you don't even notice that they're there. But in any event, this is the type of property then that the board might want to consider going through the next step of foreclosing on our lien that we're going to place on the property in order to get it up for a public auction, get a productive owner in possession of that structure, and hopefully save it, bring it back up to the state that it was. This is a very historic house. Harmony could share a little bit of information about some of the former owners. So this is a candidate for that. There isn't a way just to transfer ownership, but we could go through the process of foreclosing on this lien.
Would it go up for tax sale after 3 years?
Yes.
And somebody potentially could purchase it?
Right, but we wouldn't want to do that because that puts our lien in jeopardy.
Okay.
That's another one of those advantages that I've been talking about certifying our liens to the assessor's office each year. I don't want to place a bet that I can't afford to lose, but
Right.
Early part of the year, I would really like for us to bring you a proposal for you to adopt on a way of dealing with those outstanding liens that need to be certified and somehow carving out the ones that you want to still be in control of, if you will. But this is a prime example of one that probably should go through a foreclosure action.
And any information regarding that will be included in our packet or not?
I mean, not really. I mean, I could include, 12 statutes if you want, but I mean, it's
Just what you said, that next step, that would be the next step.
that would be the next step is to go through,
And
through
is-
a foreclosure.
And if this property is currently delinquent in property taxes, how many years in arrears?
Is it in arrears now?
Yeah, it's delinquent $497.37.
How many years, do you know?
I do not know how many years.
Just be one.
One.
Looks like to me it's just one.
So we would have a couple of years to go through, getting it secured from the elements and pursuing the foreclosure. We'd have to go through an ad litem process, much like we did in the condemnation, because we don't have a readily available owner. But we would certainly have that done before it ended up being certified for taxes.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Director Webb?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. On that topic, is there any cost to the city to go through the foreclosure process if an ad litem is being brought on? There's some legality fees, right? Would that be a part of what we could consider as interjected into the starting point for bids if it's up for auction?
We would seek that in the foreclosure itself, the cost of the foreclosure.
to get reimbursed?
Yes.
What is a message we could share with potential, real estate investors or those who flip homes now in regards to this property? Could we share kind of what we're thinking of doing? Or would that need to wait until this matter is settled at the board meeting?
I mean, I think we are sharing
Right.
what the idea is. We won't know whether that idea can go forward until the board takes the action of condemnation. Once that happens, then I will have to come back and get authority from the board to foreclose. So another opportunity for the public to know the action that's being taken and their opportunities associated therewith.
And you're thinking this is about a 24-month process, get to the finish line? No? I thought I heard 2 years.
2 years before it gets certified for taxes.
Okay.
There's 1 year delinquent, they certify after 3.
Okay.
And when
So-
you verify, that's just 1 year.
Will you get verification on that for us, James?
You're thinking 497, 1 year,
Yeah.
something along?
It looks to me like that number would be 1 year delinquent, 1 year owed. So it'd be 2 years, but only 1 year is delinquent.
So 3 years delinquent.
Gotcha.
Any additional questions? Thank you, Mike.
Yep.
Thank you, Mike. Next item up is consider resolution R24-236, a resolution declaring a certain structure located at 331 Holly Street a nuisance and condemning same pursuant to Title 17 of the Hot Springs Code. And again, Mike Scott, Chief Building Official.
Thank you. The City of Hot Springs proposes condemnation for the purpose of demolishing and clearing a vacant structure at 331 Holly Street. This single-story multifamily residence, this structure was owned by David Bryant of Mountain Pine from April of 2001. Mr. Bryant passed away in 2018. In 2023, Neighborhood Services inspectors inspected the structure and noted severe damage to the rear of the structure caused by a tree that had fallen onto the structure in the past. Neighborhood Services inspectors sent vacant structure notices to comply to the owner. Violations to the Hot Springs Property Maintenance Code included damaged roof, soffit, fascia, and missing door thresholds, as well as water damage to the interior of the structure, including the ceiling, walls, and floors. After learning of the owner's passing, a limited title search was made on the property to determine if there were additional owners. The title search showed Mr. Bryant was the owner, and there had been a mortgage with Mr. Russell Thomas filed in April of 2001. Consideration of notice of condemnations were mailed to Mr. Bryant's address as well as Mr. Thomas at his Hot Springs address, and both notices were returned unsigned, unopened. Therefore, all notices of these proceedings were handled by an attorney ad litem. The paperwork provided by the attorney ad litem is included in the packet. Having inspected the structure and based on the requirements set forth in the Arkansas Fire Prevention Code and the Property Maintenance Code, the structure was deemed unsafe for habitation because of the extensive structural damage due to the inability of the property owner to make the repairs to stabilize, and having, after located no other property owners, finding no reasonable alternative, we are recommending the structure should be raised and removed. The taxes on this house is $732.58.
Any questions of Mike on this item? Director Garcia.
The taxes, are they will it be included in our packet if the taxes are in arrears, or is it
Part of that
current?
is currently delinquent.
And the same as to the time period that it's delinquent, and if there's been any actions of the mortgage holder to.
We've not had any other contact with the gentleman.
No, if there's any record of the mortgage holder filing to foreclose on the property.
Our limited title search did not show anything, but I will tell you, I'm going to make a personal call, if not an email, to Mr. Thomas to let him know that this is going forward.
And if he or someone else was here, the pictures were, I saw the date of 7/15. If there's any more recent pictures, just if someone said they had done something to be working on the property or not.
If they did so without a permit.
Yeah,
Not
nobody
being issued.
shows any record of anything doing it.
Any additional comments or questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Next item is consider resolution R24-237, a resolution approving the application of Jason Bennett doing business as Good Times Taxi for a taxi cab service transportation permit, and City Clerk Harmony Morrissey will present.
Thank you. This item will sound somewhat familiar to you all. Mr. Bennett had applied for a taxi service transportation permit on August 8th of this year. He plans to operate a taxi dispatch office from 300 Exchange Street. He's requesting to operate up to 6 vehicles. He plans to operate the taxi service from 10 a.m. to 2 a.m. Transportation Advisory Committee held a hearing on October 9th where they voted 4-1 to recommend approval of his application. On November 5th, it came before the board. The board voted to remand it back to TAC in light of a complaint about Mr. Bennett's pedicab business that was received earlier that day. On November 21st, TAC reconsidered their recommendation. The committee voted at that time 3 in favor, 1 opposed, and 2 abstaining from the motion to recommend approving Mr. Bennett's application for a taxi service transportation permit for 6 taxi cabs. So that recommendation is now being presented to you for your consideration. The packet on this item is a wee bit lengthy, so it has lots of links in it with the meeting recordings, as well as links to the pertinent code sections. So there's quite a bit of material in it. I just kind of wanted to give you that up front. And then as well as Mr. Bennett's application and the materials that he supported in support of his application. I'm happy to answer any questions. He will be here. He says he will be here with his attorney that evening.
Director Garcia?
In full disclosure, I participated in the last TAC meeting, and I will be recusing from discussion and vote of this item.
Okay. Any additional questions on this at this time? Director Trustee?
Thank you, Mayor. Brian, the vote was 3, 4, 1 against, and 2 abstaining. That's not a majority of those that voted to remand that back to here. Is that what I heard? 3 in favor, 1 against, and 2 abstained?
It's 3 in favor, 1 opposed, and 2 abstaining. And so
But,
that comes to you as their recommendation.
Their recommendation for approval, or just their, I mean,
Well,
it's
it's-
not,
That's the way
That's
that
their
they
vote.
voted, that's the way they voted on their recommendation to approve. It has to come back to you because you're the only one that can issue a permit. So that's,
but that's not a majority
It
of the
comes-
6 people.
you can take it for what you will.
Gotcha.
That was the vote.
The
on the
recommendation comes to you
recommendation.
regardless of the vote.
I got you. Thank
Because,
you.
yes,
Okay.
you will make the final decision on that.
All right, thank you.
Sorry.
So if it was voted down, it would still come back to
Yes,
us?
sir.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, essentially, the vote was a plurality.
Gotcha. Thank you.
All right. Any additional questions on this? Thank you.
And the last item on the list is consider ordinance 02440, an ordinance amending Title 10, Chapter 7 of the Hot Springs Code by providing parking options for qualified residents of the downtown Central Avenue corridor and for other purposes. And City Attorney Brian Albright will present.
Thank you, Denny. This is a topic that you all haven't devoted any time on at all throughout this year, but yes, it is parking. At your last meeting, I think it was Director Webb and others echoed the same comments that we have an employee parking program. You wanted to see a proposal for a resident parking program. And so this is my attempt at trying to do that. It would be set up very similar to the employee parking program in that it would be pursuant to a policy that would ultimately be promulgated and administered by the city manager. However, it would be subject to these restrictions. A residential parking program will be limited to owners or lessees of primary residences on Central Avenue between its intersection with Prospect Avenue and its intersection with Park Avenue in Whittington. That's the same geographical boundary you have for your employee parking. Authorized vehicle parking permits up to a maximum of 2 motorized vehicles per residential address will be limited to those having an Arkansas Department of Finance and Administration vehicle registration bearing the residential address on Central Avenue from its intersection with Prospect Avenue and its intersection with Park Avenue in Whittington. The idea being there that it's not for a vacation home, it's not for a second location, that's the address where they have their vehicle registration. Limited to 2. There are 2 options for people living in that area. If they want to have a residential parking permit within a primary zone, that's the red areas on your map. The permit fee for the first eligible motorized vehicle shall be $250 per eligible vehicle, per eligible address, per quarter. The permit fee for the second eligible motorized vehicle shall be $100 per eligible vehicle, per eligible residential address, per quarter. Such permit issued under the residential parking program may be used in any otherwise lawful parking space within any parking zone in lieu of the applicable hourly limitation and rates. So if you go with this type of, if you're eligible and you receive this type of parking permit, essentially you can park anywhere you want to other than handicap, fire lane, things of that nature. If it's a designated parking spot, you can park there as part of your permit fee that you have paid on a quarterly basis. The other option is secondary zone, residential parking permit secondary zone. The permit fee for the first eligible motorized vehicle shall be $100 per eligible vehicle per eligible residential address per quarter, and the permit fee for the second eligible motorized vehicle shall be $50 per eligible vehicle per eligible residential address per quarter. Such parking permit under this type of program would allow them to park anywhere in a secondary parking zone in lieu of the applicable hours and rates for that zone. All permits would be paid in advance without proration. So it has to be a quarterly fee. If it's February and you want it, you got to pay for the first quarter, or you wait till the second quarter and then you can pay for that quarter. That's the attempt. I don't know how well that's going to stand with the board, but
Starting point.
that's what we're proposing for your agenda.
Very good. Any questions of Brian at this time?
Thank you for giving us a good starting point, Brian, and will all of what you just shared with us be included in the packet, the breakdown of the proposed rates?
Yes, sir. That's actually going to be in your ordinance itself. Yes, sir.
Director Trustee?
Thank you, Mayor. Ron, where are these residents parking now? Just on the street? Just on,
I think there's a little bit of both. I think some of them have off-street parking.
Okay.
Some of the residents downtown actually do have, in some instances, covered parking.
right, right.
There is a segment, I would say, from Mountain north to Whittington. You know, Whippoorwill doesn't exist, right? We
Right.
like to talk about Whippoorwill, but there's no such street. So there is no backdoor parking. If you're south of that, you have Exchange Street, you have, what is that, Romer Alley, you have some other areas and side streets that you can park on. But north of Mountain, there really isn't much. There's Fountain, which a good portion of that is going to be red. And then there's the off streets once you get to Whittington and Park. But there's not a lot available. When I say a lot, that's bad use of words.
Aren't many available.
There are a few choices between Mountain and Whittington Prospect. Whittington Park.
About how many residents are we talking about, do we think?
8.
I knew last time it was 8 to 12 or something like that, so, okay.
And, you know, not to overlook what could be an issue further in the future, if there were ever any additional development downtown of existing buildings
Certainly.
that converted them to permanent residence, then this may be something that the board has to look at again. But as I understand it, and I'm not part of your vision, I might be a cane for us to get through places we can't see. But if your vision is that this whole revenue stream can someday fund a bond that can put another parking deck into play, then those problems are somewhat alleviated at that point. So it could be good planning to get that done, which then enhances the ability to convert those structures into permanent residences.
Right.
Any additional questions?
Are we including the Aristocrat in that 8 people? Is there, I know they have a parking
They
garage.
they have
Do
parking.
they have enough parking for their,
I didn't do the background work on this. Lance did. Lance's report back to our group was that it was about 8 people.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sure it'll get plenty of press, and there'll be people here if they need the parking. They'll show.
Well, that concludes the action items that will be formally addressed next Tuesday evening, December 17th at 6 p.m. right here at City Hall. This concludes the agenda meeting. Enjoy the